cortisol levels can be low, they can be flat, and that's a really big cause for why people struggle to get out of bed in the morning. Those levels can be flipped. It can be low in the morning and high at night for some people, which is why they can't get to bed at night and why they feel like, they're really, really activated in the evening. And so cortisol can be really high, it can be really low, it can be imbalanced throughout the day. And what's supposed to happen is, you wake up, your cortisol levels are high, it tapers off throughout the day so that you get a really good night of sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so if we don't stop, if we don't let our bodies come back to a sense of safety, we can deplete ourselves long term.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I am elated. I am so thrilled to have this wonderful young lady to the show today, Miriam Jacobson. Now, she is the founder of Every Body Bliss. Now, I have to break it up so people know it's not one word, Every Body Bliss. It's Every Body Bliss. And she's a triple board certified functional medicine dietitian. And this young lady has over 15 years of experience in holistic health, focusing on food, mindset, which is super important in that space, and of course, lifestyle. And she's going to talk to us about her healing approach that has influenced her from her personal journeys, surviving through 9/11, breast cancer, and I love how she put this, addressing mystery symptoms. And we all have those, especially when it comes to the digestion and fatigue and the gut health, all that stuff. And she's going to kind of lay it out on us, how her experience has actually led to the healing approaches that she teaches thousands and thousands of people. So with no further ado, Miriam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, Dr. Lunid. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Oh, I'm so elated. You have no idea. So I want to know how your journey started, right? So we're talking back in 9/11. So what was the onset of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. And I'm an open book, so you can really ask me anything. But like you mentioned, I am a survivor of 9/11. I lived down by the Twin Towers during that time, and my dad actually worked on the 110th floor of One World Trade, and so he was in the towers, and he died that day.
Wow.
And that was a really big moment for me. That was a big rupture, right? And it really turned my entire world upside down. And at the time, there was a lot of other family stuff going on as well. And for about 5 years, I refused to talk about my grief. I refused to address the trauma. I thought that talking about anything was gonna bring it up, and I thought that I was gonna fall into a black hole. I thought I was never gonna be able to crawl my way out. And so I really buried everything. And it was only until I was able to realize how traumatized I still was, how much anxiety I was still carrying in my body. And that's really when my own healing journey started. So even though the rupture had started back in 2001, the first time I walked into a therapist's office was in 2006. And it was through that time that I realized, oh, I need help. And ignoring my emotional symptoms and suppressing my emotions and everything that I had lived through actually started coming out physically for me. Yeah. So at 13 years old, I had migraines and back pain, and I was a regular at the acupuncturist and the chiropractor. And so that was really the beginning of my healing journey. And I think for a lot of people, there's a wake up moment where it's oh, I'm actually really unwell. I'm not feeling good. And what do I need to do to best support myself?
Yeah, and I find that a lot of people don't know how to listen to their bodies in that way, to actually see the symptoms and continue to ignore it. Tell us about that dark place that you feel going to. What happens when we just kind of shove it under the rug, right? When we shove it deep and not try to bring it up. Well, let's talk about what happens then in the deficit.
Oh, the repression is real.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, a lot of people can like relate to this where they're like, oh, this happened so long ago and time will take care of it and time will heal it. And when it comes to deeply like traumatizing and stressful experiences, our body holds on to those as memories and we store them and they're stored in our nervous system and they have really potent physiological impacts. It's not just something that's happening to us like mentally and emotionally, but that emotion really comes out in our bodies. Like for example, our digestive system, it has a whole nervous system. And
Yeah.
so when we're dysregulated, our gut is going to be deeply impacted. And then our immune system will be impacted. We'll be more predisposed to diagnoses like heart disease and autoimmune conditions and inflammatory conditions. And so um, it has really widespread effects. And I think so many of us are walking around this world and they're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on. I don't have time to
Mm-hmm.
address the stress. I don't have time to go to the therapist. It's expensive. It's time consuming. I have all these other responsibilities, but I think oftentimes we don't realize the ripple effects that not addressing these things can have in our lives. And I know for me personally, like I was experiencing, like I said, migraines, but I was also having like stomach aches. I was never fully satiated. Like I was in so much pain, I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so it really does have a big physiological component.
And I've seen that quite a bit with abuse. So you
Mm-hmm.
experience the grief, there's abuse, especially when it happens at a young age and your brain literally like blocks it off because our brain is designed to protect us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if this experience in our memory is so traumatizing, just reliving it kind of feel like we're living in the moment again. We're going through that experience one more time. The brain is designed to block it off because it's trying to protect us. And so that's what happens. To find a lot of people are just kind of walking around with a lot of trauma that is really directing their behavior, right? Subconsciously. It's directing how they speak. It's directing how they live their life. And I can see how that physiologically can kind of seep through the body. Let's talk about how you navigated your healing journey because I know you wrote a memoir as well. To
I'm
help.
working on writing a memoir. It's taking forever as these things do.
What can we expect from it in terms of the healing process and navigating that? Because it's tough. It's not easy.
It isn't easy. And I just do want to elaborate on a point that you made that I think is really important, especially for people who have been, in abusive situations or in actively abusive situations. It's really hard to heal when we're not safe. And so if that's ongoing and if these, people who are listening are in similar situations, don't blame yourself for not being ready to like unpack all of this, because I
Mhm.
think that in order to heal. And I think this is what was really relevant for me and why I had to wait so long, was because I still wasn't safe. The city wasn't safe.
Okay.
My internal family life wasn't safe. And so it wasn't a good time, right, to start like unpacking like deep parts of my soul and of my traumatizing experience. And I think that there are similarities between
I
people who
agree.
are experiencing ongoing
I
abuse.
agree. Well said.
Um, and so for me, it started out with mental health support. So I started out with EMDR, movement desensitization and reprocessing. My mom was really into therapy. David Grand was her therapist, and he came up with brain spotting. And so she was always very much into this, like we need to move this trauma somatically. And so when I addressed her, like when I was 18, and I was like, I need help, that was the first thing that we addressed because it was such an obvious source of
Yeah.
my pain. But as I, moved into my 20s, what I began to realize was how that trauma was impacting me physically, like I had mentioned. And so not only did I have to address like the physical, emotional, and like nervous system pieces to that, but then I also began to unpack like the nutritional and physiological imbalances that were causing me pain. So it was really a multi approach where I had to peel back the layers. And I think there's no wrong place to start. Like if you have a spark and you're like, I know that I really need to be working on this, like that's a really good place to start. Put one foot down and the next step will naturally unfold. Because we're such smart human beings
Yeah. Your
and
body.
we know our body is the best, right? And
Right.
so it's like when you start something, you'll know what your next step is.
Yeah, and you said it very well. And for the unexplained symptoms, you see people going to doctors like with you specific, right? The migraines. You don't know what it is. They can't pinpoint it. You go see neurologists. You go see all these people. They can't pinpoint it. And one big issue is digestion. Let's talk about
Mm-hmm.
that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that that's really a place that you immediately feel it, bloatedness,
Mm-hmm.
irregularity, and you're just uncomfortable because then
Mm-hmm.
lack of enzymes. What's happening? Because one part of the body is mentally clogged, and it actually transcends to other
Mm-hmm.
areas. So let's unpack that.
Yeah, we have a whole nervous system in our gut. We have 500 million neurons
Nice.
that are in our gut. That's more neurons in our gut than are in our spine.
Wow.
And our gut and our brain have this direct connection through the vagus nerve. And so when we're stressed, again, when we're dysregulated, when we live through traumatic experiences or ongoing, again, that activates our nervous system, and that's going to have direct impacts
Yeah.
for the digestive system. And I think it really manifests differently for every single person, right? There might be, the most immediate, like, oops, I'm having a stressful meeting and I have to like go to the bathroom, right? Like, so there might be like that direct connection.
So
But
right
over
before a
time,
presentation, you gotta.
yeah, you feel it,
Yeah.
like people know, like people listening who know what we're talking about, because that's how like human that experience is and how built into our biology it is.
Yeah.
But like what happens when we experience ongoing stress, like the chronic stressors,
Mm.
it depletes our body's like ability to digest foods. It lowers our stomach acid. It
Mhm.
lowers our digestive enzymes. It lowers our ability to release bile, which breaks down fat. And so we're beginning to not be able to digest our food. Right. And then
That's crazy.
because blood is flowing away from the gut. So like what happens when you're in fight and flight
Mm.
or fight or flight is your nervous system's activated and it's telling your body that you're now in survival. Like there's a threat and you need to like run away or fight this threat, right? So blood is going to flow away from your gut towards your muscles to support you in doing this. This is how our bodies are built.
Yeah.
But the consequence of that long term, right? Like that's supposed to happen just for a moment and then our bodies come back to safety. But what happens long term is it reduces digestive factors. And then that in turn impacts our microbiome. It alters the bugs, the good bugs in our gut.
Mm-hmm.
It increases inflammation. It makes us more predisposed to all of those inflammatory conditions that we're seeing on the rise.
Yeah, and getting ill so frequently because the immune system is compromised at that point. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned the fight or flight, and that's huge because I know it's tied closely to adrenal fatigue. And
Mm-hmm.
you talk a lot about fatigue, and the adrenal fatigue is just way too much cortisol releasing through the body because you're constantly at this fight phase, but there's no real imminent danger though, right? It's just all up here, and so you just think the body just is ready to protect you as if you're running away from a lion in a jungle. And so let's talk about fatigue and adrenal fatigue. What happens in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're driving a car and you're never stopping and filling up on gas, like you're going to break down on the side of the road. Similar things for our body. We're not meant to be stuck in the on position. Like our stress response is really helpful. It helps us survive. It helps us thrive in our lives.
Right.
Cortisol is what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's what energizes us. It's what, helps us feel motivated and, gives me energy to talk to you here today even. Right. But if we're constantly driving ourselves and never stopping to refuel, we're going to get depleted. And that's what happens with adrenal fatigue. And we see it a lot, right? Everyone is so worried about high cortisol levels, but no one's talking about low cortisol levels. Cortisol levels can be low, they can be flat. And that's a really big cause for why people struggle to get out of bed in the morning. those levels can be flipped. It can be low in the morning and high at night for some people, which is why they can't get to bed at night and why they feel like, they're really, really activated in the evening. And so cortisol can be really high. It can be really low. It can be imbalanced throughout the day. And what's supposed to happen is, you wake up, your cortisol levels are high. It tapers off throughout the day so that you get a really good night of sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so if we don't stop, if we don't let our bodies come back to a sense of safety, we can deplete ourselves long term.
Yeah. And then that leads to thyroid issues and it goes back to gaining weight unnecessarily, can't control your weight. One of those issues. Let's talk about how, you have a holistic approach. And I love that so much. So let's talk about how you are challenging the conventional way of doing medicine, because you're not about prescribing a pill, a medicine. You're not all about the pharmaceutical piece of it. You're trying to see how the body can naturally heal itself. And so go ahead, dive into some of that component.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the way doctors are trained, the way our medical system is set up is where they're trained to diagnose imbalances and medicate based on those diagnoses.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that just it works for maybe cancer or a heart attack or like acute health conditions that are life-threatening.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our health long term and our wellness and our longevity throughout our lives, this way of working with the body doesn't work because the medication is just a Band-Aid.
Right.
And so when we can really understand why someone is sick and we can really understand what are the nutritional factors that are causing these illness, what are the mental and nervous system pieces, what are the environmental components that are creating imbalance, we can address the underlying reasons and actually heal the body. We can reverse prediabetes. You can lower blood pressure. You can bring your autoimmune markers down. So there's a lot of power that nutrition and holistic medicine can have on the body. And I'm not preaching like only food. Like I think that there again is a place for pharmaceuticals, but I think we need to challenge ourselves to have a wider perspective rather than just relying on a pill to solve a problem.
Yeah, just kind of flip the switch a little bit, right? Make sure that the appointment is not only 15 minutes, checking off the things on the marker and going through the numbers and actually getting to know your patient and their history so that you can better put a process in place or the resources in place.
Yeah, exactly. You're not talking about adverse childhood events, in a 15-minute consultation with your doctor. You're just not.
Yeah, no. That's a whole different department, right? That's a referral. That's a referral process. Throughout this conversation, Miriam, you've talked about safety and finding that feeling safe, because for you personally, you didn't feel safe for a long period after the event happened. And so it took a while to open up about it. How do we go about getting into that safety zone, that safety space, so we can open up and start the healing process?
It's a really great question. And I think that there are a lot of really incredible tools for doing that. I think one of the most powerful regulators of that is our connection with other people. So if you think about from an evolutionary perspective, we're tribal people. We are used to living in community. And there's a piece of our nervous system that's regulated by social engagement and social connection. And so if there are people around you where you feel really safe around and you feel really connected to, those are the people to really gravitate towards and really lean into. And even if that's just someone you can call, even if it's a therapist, right? Even if that person's a therapist, but really connecting with another human being and establishing that sense of safety is the best thing for your nervous system. Even better if you can hug that person, because like that physical connection actually helps our bodies metabolize cortisol, that stress hormone. If that person is someone that you like to laugh with, like I always think about those like friends that I laugh so much, it hurts my face and like I'm crying. Though that's the kind of connection that's really helpful for establishing safety in our bodies. And then of course, being able to do that independently is also really helpful. I know a lot of different therapists have tools where they help you find a safe place, right? Or a happy place so that you can always have something to rely back on and go back to. And so if you're a visual person thinking about a place that you've been in or a place that you want to go as your happy place can also be an established sense of safety inside of yourself.
Yeah, and those all sound free beside the therapist session. The
Yep.
laughing, the hugging, the laughing, the hugging, the communal aspect of it.
Mhm.
Because when you get in that space, that dog space, you just want to be alone, and that's just you're feeding that. You want to run away from isolation and
Mhm.
solitude at that time until you can actually develop the tools, independent tools, as you call them. I like that so much. Independent tools to actually do it solo, do it yourself and get yourself to that space. But you're absolutely right. It really is. That stuff is free. That stuff is free. And
Yeah.
that's one quick way to actually trick yourself, trick the mind out of the space that it's in.
Yeah, and I think it's really fascinating even looking at the blue zones, for example. Like the blue zones are areas in the world where people live the longest, happiest, healthiest lives.
Yeah.
And not only do they have less stress and they eat really beautiful food, but what they're finding is a really strong sense of community engagement and purpose with these people. Um, and and so I think that's really what we're missing, especially in the US, is people are more isolated than ever, especially after COVID. And so I mean, we tend to self-isolate, like you said, when we're not feeling good.
Hmm.
And so it's like, can we challenge that? And can we call a friend and be like, hey, I have this tendency to self-isolate, but what I know I really need right now is connection.
Yeah. Another thing I would add to that is outdoor, right? Going out into nature, going for a hike,
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
If there are kids around, just watch them, like they help you come back to life in a way. And the other piece, we're going to get into your morning routine that's big for me personally is meditation. So
Mm-hmm.
and meditation actually gets you into that space of just calmness, and you could start incorporating some of the things you can do independently. But let's talk about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up? What's your morning routine like?
Yes. So every morning I wake up and my little poodle, I have like a 7-pound rescue poodle.
Yeah.
She's in my bed and she's like, flags
Let's
her
go.
little tail. And it's like, I'm like, hey, beautiful. And we go outside. So I go outside the first thing in the morning is I have this like cute little fluffy animal with me. We go outside, we enjoy the sunlight. Sometimes it's overcast and I also really enjoy that as well. Um, Come inside and make myself a cup of coffee and I journal. And
Hmm.
that's like my most simple, bare bones morning routine. Like that's what I did this morning. I hopped on a call with you early in the morning, right? I can spend 8 to 10 hours doing a morning routine.
Wow. You're working on that memoir. I
I
get
love wellness
it.
tools, but I'm also like a realistic human who has a job and needs to be like a functioning person in the world. And so that's my like at the minimum. And then as I move through my morning, I focus on my breath and I focus on my breathing, which is my form of like moving meditation. And I think about things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The gratitude is big. It's so big. It's so small. It's so like impactful, right? Just the little things you're grateful for, be it a glass of water or your poodle, your dog, and as you said, the overcast weather. That really it shows you more things to be grateful for. It breeds
Mm-hmm.
more things to be grateful for, and it becomes this whole like chain of less gratitude, and you just find yourself in a blissful moment with going with the name of your company. And so gratitude is key. I love that you journal, because I read somewhere that journaling is a form of meditation within itself,
I
because it
love that.
allows you to have that one mind track to kind of focus and kind of jot down your thoughts, and it's therapeutic within it.
Yeah, it feels like clearing out the cobwebs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. What about any tips that you have for people who are starting this journey and that wants to be encouraged to continue in this process? I mean, you're living proof of it, obviously, but what are some tips that you can provide to actually get somebody to continue on this healing journey?
Yeah, I think taking it one day at a time and really connecting in with what your body needs in a specific moment, knowing that it's just a moment and that, it's not going to be how you're in an hour or how you're going to be feeling tomorrow. But really showing up and not needing to do it all at once. And just trusting yourself that you can like rise to the occasion when you need to rise to the occasion. I think so many of us are like so daunted of like, oh my gosh, like I have so much to work on and I have such a long journey ahead of me. And it's like, okay, that's your life. You have time for that. You have time for all of it to unfold. You're going to live through it all. You're going to like have the answers that you need to have. But what do you need right now? Like, what do you need in this moment? What do you need today to support yourself? And that's a question that I've been asking myself for years now. And even when I can't see the end of like a chapter that is particularly painful, it helps ground me in the moment and realizing that I actually am doing quite a bit for myself.
I love how you simplify it. Yeah, I do. I do. That's how you work with your clients. I see why you're beloved.
Oh, thank you.
That's amazing. That really is. It just brings a sense of calm of like, yeah, have grace towards yourself. Acknowledge how far you've come, and don't get boggled and overwhelmed by the whole picture. Just one step at a time, one
We're
day.
gonna get there. We're gonna
Yeah,
get there. Yeah.
1 minute at a time. I love that, and that just kind of brings it back to earth and grounds you. And it's like it's okay. You don't have to have all the answers now. Kind of like life, right? You don't have to have all the answers right there and then, but day at a time. And so I really love how you simplify the process. Tell us about your memoir. Tell us where we can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. I am still working on my manuscript, so it's going to be quite a while before a book is published. But if people want to connect, they can connect with my nutrition practice. I'm Every Body Bliss on Instagram. Everybodybliss.com is my website. I work with people one-on-one to support their nutritional health, and then I also do corporate wellness programming and work with larger audiences
That's
to improving their health. And so that's really how people can work with me now and definitely stay in touch for my book. That's really exciting. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. That's fantastic. Before I let you go, I do have a pressing question
Mm,
about energy.
mhm.
As we're talking, I'm just thinking we're a bundle of energy, right? And if there's a misalignment energetically in one area of ourselves, it kind of, like chakras, it kind of
Mhm.
causes some blockage. What's your take on that? Because as you approach, we have the holistic approach to it. Is that foo-foo? Is that taboo? Do you believe in that?
I mean, I think we're all energetic beings, right? And my energy is going to impact your energy, even if we're just like virtually connecting right now. And what I really find fascinating, like, are these studies that I've seen where like they look at water molecules underneath a microscope, and the formation of those water molecules change depending on like your thoughts
What?
around them and like the intention that you're putting into them. And so I
What?
think about that a lot when I think about like energy and like frou-frou woo-woo
Yeah.
stuff, right? Because I'm like, okay, these people have been practicing this for thousands of years, right? And so there, just because modern science hasn't necessarily caught up to it doesn't mean that it doesn't have like a real effect in our body. And so I also facilitate breath work
Hmm.
as another modality and tool that I'll use with people for nervous system support. And what's really fascinating is that every time someone sits down to breathe and do that practice, they experience it energetically in their bodies in different ways. Like sometimes people's hands clench up and they're vibrating, and sometimes people's mouths clench up or like their face starts twitching. And so while I'm not, a devout student of like the chakra system, I think it's really interesting what shows up physically in breath work, for example, when we're needing to heal in certain areas. Like I notice that people clench a lot when they're having a really hard time being vulnerable
Yeah.
and letting themselves feel feelings. And so I know that's like it's a funny way to answer that question. But we all, I study the nutritional aspects and the mitochondrial aspects of why we have low energy, but I think that there really is like an energetic connection of how we're impacted by the people we surround ourselves with, the thoughts we choose, which is why I think gratitude is such a powerful practice, and what we really need to be paying attention to in our bodies. And I think our bodies are so wise, and they can really cue us into what needs healing.
Yeah, that was the best answer. I mean, you said funny way of answering it, but you got right to it. You got me at the whole water molecule and how the thought impacts it. How
I forgot the name of the book, but I can send it to you. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. Yeah.
That's powerful. Is because I'm open to different methods, right? I'm open to the different ways of healing. As long as the one path is healing, how we get there, how you skin the cat doesn't really matter, right? And so that was really mind-boggling, and I really appreciate you sharing that. That was the perfect answer, because there is an absolute connection that cannot be neglected, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for asking that. That was a fun one.
Of course. It's been a pleasure, Miriam, having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your presence with us today, your energy. We really, really appreciate and valued it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lunid, for having me on here. It was just such a fun conversation.
Of course.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.